May this be the day we come together. Mourning, we come to mend. Withered, we come to weather. Torn, we come to tend. Battered, we come to better. Tethered by this year of yearning, we are learning that though we weren't ready for this, we have been readied by it. We steadily vow that no matter how we are weighed down, we must always pave a way forward. This hope is our door, our portal. Even if we never get back to normal, someday we can venture beyond it, to leave the known and take the first steps. So let us not return to what was normal, but reach toward what is next. What was cursed, we will cure. What was plagued, we will prove pure. Where we tend to argue, we will try to agree. Those fortunes we forswore, now the future we foresee. Where we weren't aware, we're now awake. Those moments we missed are now these moments we make, the moments we meet. And our hearts, once all together beaten, now all together beat. Come, look up with kindness yet, for even solace can be sourced from sorrow. We remember not just for the sake of yesterday, but to take on tomorrow. We heed this old spirit in a new day's lyric in our hearts. We hear it for Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne. Be bold, saying time this year. Be bold, saying time, for when you honor yesterday, tomorrow ye will find. Know what we fought need not be forgot, nor for none. It defines us, binds us as one. Come over, join this day just begun. For wherever we come together, we will forever overcome.
You have just heard A New Day's Lyric by Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman. Her words set the tone for the town hall experience we have planned for you this evening. I am Dr. Persharon Dixon, the Southern Area of the Links Incorporated Health and Human Services Chair. On behalf of our Area Director, Sylvia Perry, I bring greetings and welcome you to our town hall, Black Women's Mental Wellness in the Aftermath of the COVID pandemic. Now, May is Mental Health Month and an opportunity for us to discuss the concerning rise of mental health issues in African American women in the wake of the pandemic. This evening, we will explore the stressors that have been exacerbated during the pandemic, leading to increased mental challenges for African American women. Our expert panelists are also members of our organization, representing the 7 states and the greater Commonwealth of the Bahamas that encompass the Southern area. Now, as Ms. Gordon pronounced so passionately in her piece, no matter how we are weighed down, we must always pave a way forward. This town hall is designed to help us all do just that. We want to acknowledge our principal sponsor, Memorial Health Systems in Miramar, Florida, and our Mask to Protect, Unmasked to Inform grant partner, the National COVID Resiliency Network, for their support of this mental wellness conversation. And now we will have a word from our principal sponsor, Memorial Healthcare Systems.
Greetings. I am Dr. Tadra Anderson Rhodes, the Chief Medical Officer at Memorial Hospital Miramar within the Memorial Healthcare System, located here in sunny South Florida. Yes, within the boundaries of the southern area of the Links Incorporated. Memorial, the 3rd largest public healthcare system in the country, is ecstatic and proud to be a principal sponsor of the Post-COVID Wellness Town Hall featuring Kim Fields and the expert panel from the Southern area who will address the mind, body, and spirit with this much needed and, to be sure, extremely informative collaboration surrounding mental health, strength, and well-being. Memorial Healthcare System's mission to heal the body, mind, and spirit of those we touch, which includes the mental, emotional, and behavioral well-being of our patients, families, and communities, is in absolute alignment with the outstanding Mental Health Awareness Month programming brought to us all by the Southern area. Congratulations are in order to Sylvia Carter-Perry, Area Director of the Southern Area, Deborah Thomas, Program Coordinator, per Sharon Dixon, Southern Area Health and Human Services Chair, and Vice Chair Sarah Moody Thomas. On behalf of our Memorial Healthcare System CEO, Aurelio Fernandez, our Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer, Leah Ann Carpenter, our entire team in our 6 hospitals, as well as our outpatient settings, I am privileged to salute all of you servant leaders on behalf of Memorial. And thank you, Southern Area of the Links Incorporated, for this opportunity to partner in service to our communities.
Thank you so much, Memorial Healthcare Systems, and our sister in this organization, Tadra Anderson Brown, the Chief Medical Officer of Memorial Healthcare Systems. Now, our moderator today is the multi-Emmy award-winning television journalist, Shania Chavis Rucker of Atlanta, Georgia. Her career path as a journalist has included stops in Atlanta, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Myrtle Beach, and Macon, Georgia. During her years as an anchor/reporter, she has interviewed presidents, heads of state, and mayors, and has covered national elections, Super Bowls, World Series, and a long list of other national and local news events. She is a member of the Links Incorporated and hails from the Azalea City chapter. Please welcome Mrs. Shania Chavis Rucker.
Thank you so very much for that warm introduction. And what an exciting evening we have lined up. Now, I promise you, you will be engaged by the evening's end, and you will have information that will support your wellness journey. Now, we know that stories are an important way that African Americans share their trials, their tribulations, joy, and accomplishments. And we know those same stories often serve as catalysts for our growth and progress. So tonight, our discussion will be speckled with the mental wellness journey of our featured celebrity artist, renowned actor, producer, and director, Kim Fields.
You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of life. The facts of life. There's a time you gotta go and show you grow, and now you know about the facts of life. The facts of life.
Check it out, check it out. What you want, girlfriend? Position. Hey, yes, we're living a single life, yeah.
When have I ever let you down?
Look, Benny, it's your baby mama. Hi, I am so delighted to join the Southern area of the Links Incorporated for this important conversation about the mental wellness of Black women. I commend all of you for your hard work, your wonderful work in this area, because we know COVID has only exacerbated the stress leading to greater mental challenges with Black women and ultimately impacting our families. So let's get started.
It's so great to have you, Miss Fields. Now, those statistics that you just saw on the screen are exactly why we are here this evening. We must pay attention to the rise in mental health issues in our community of women. We all know too well that saying, I feel like I'm about to lose my mind. Well, in this pandemic, I'll venture to say that we all did, if only just a little bit, feel that very way. So, from isolation at home to frontline work, regardless of the danger, to homeschooling to economic loss, the stress has been overwhelming for many. Maintaining our sanity, our mental health, our mind, it is priority one. Let's now go back to our intimate conversation with Miss Kim Fields.
The way that COVID affected my mental health was really, it slowed me down, I think, like most people. It especially once we got into like the for real lockdown, quarantine, you ain't going nowhere. It gave me certainly a greater awareness of my body, of my health, of the machine that this is, and certainly, of course, my mental got affected again, like most people, where you start dealing with your mortality, immortality. The stressors that I think came as a byproduct of that was just more awareness of, okay, don't comfort food yourself to death. And so that was, a thing, in all honesty. And everybody talked about, the COVID-15 and the COVID-25 and the 35 or whatever. Being too hard on myself in terms of pivoting, because women especially, and no disrespect to the gentlemen, but we do wear a lot of hats. We take care of, I think, during COVID, it was that time of mama bearing everybody. My wonderful cameraman, his name is Sam Bear, actually, so no pun intended there, Sam. But you did have this sense of mama bear. You had to make sure your kids were okay, your partner was okay, your spouse was okay, your parents were okay, and loved ones and family members. No matter what role, if you were big mama, auntie, sister, mommy, friend, certainly a lot of us that are either entrepreneurs or in some level of business, or COVID created that side hustle all of a sudden, and so the idea of the pivot. So I think the irony in terms of, again, how was my mental health impacted was the fact that there were all these extra mental calisthenics at a time when we were all so still, because we were in lockdown mode. We were in sit down and Zoom forever and a day. And yet you had to, just have so much going on, how to keep your family healthy, how to keep your family safe. For me, definitely, that was more of a stressor than something that was encouraging or non-challenging. Something that was really heavy on my spirit was keeping my family safe, wipe down everything. Do the breathing treatment to, I had this big pot, and every day I would put in, I saw this on Facebook, and my brothers from the Caribbean was doing it, and I was like, well, if they doing it, I know I'm gonna do it. And I had this pot of hot water that I would boil, and I would put in different citrus peels, and then sea salt, and I would, inhale it to burn out any germs that were, trying to get up in here, and you ain't gonna get me. And so there was that, again, that sense of just keeping everybody safe, keeping myself safe. Sometimes it would lead to a bit of a fear, in real talk, because again, there was so much loss during the early bits of the virus. And so there was that. So you again felt that sense of fear, and then the work you do, again, the mental calisthenics, to not show anybody that you're feeling that and that your mind is doing all of that, because we don't have the luxury to start tripping, do we? Sometimes I feel like during COVID, there was a heightened sense of giving myself permission. giving myself permission to feel what I feel and to have everybody around me understand, hey, it's okay to feel what you feel. Your children, whatever you're feeling, if it's fear, if it's frustration, if it's boredom, don't fight any of it. Just feel it until you don't feel that anymore. And then we're on to something else. I didn't have a loss of projects, thankfully. The Upshaws, though, which is where I am, I'm in my dressing room at the Upshaws. So when you see somewhere during second season me look like this, you'll go, oh, this is when she recorded the conversation we haven't. But the Upshaws did take a break for several months, but I did still keep working, thankfully. I did a movie for BET Her. It was a short film. They had a campaign on Black women mental health awareness. My short film was about postpartum depression. I did some other projects and things. So I actually did keep working. I did a holiday movie called Adventures in Christmasing. And so we definitely had to I saw how the industry was changing rapidly to keep working, but to keep everyone safe. But with homeschooling, actually our kids, our two sons, Sebastian and Quincy, were already being homeschooled with a tutor because the nature of our schedules and traveling. And so that was actually not, a new thing for us. So that just, that part of the journey just kept right on going.
So Miss Field's life sounds a lot like our lives, doesn't it? Well, our panelists for this segment are phenomenal experts in their fields. Dr. Terry Timberlake Briscoe, psychologist and former director of adult mental health right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Brandy Rudolph Bowling, a primary care pediatrician with specialty training in adult and child and adolescent psychiatry. And yes, there she is, Roselle Moxie, a financial specialist and one of the financial commissioners for Nassau, Bahamas. Ladies, it is absolutely wonderful to see you all. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Dr. Terry, let's begin with you. Ms. Field mentioned early on of being too hard on herself, right? And needing to give herself permission to feel what she feels. I know we recognize that. So how do we do that? How do we give ourselves as Black women permission to feel what we feel?
Absolutely. Giving ourselves permission to experience the full array of emotions is really one of the most important self-affirming gifts and acts of self-care that we can give to ourselves. It's essential. But in order to do this, we must remind ourselves that though we are often, as Black women, superheroes doing everything, we are human and we are designed to experience the ups and downs of life, just like everyone else is. We aren't exempt from that. And so those emotions, the uncomfortable ones, the ones that are often hard to talk about and to experience, those emotions are not signs of weakness. And we have to remind ourselves and allow ourselves to live this truth, which is, it is okay not to feel okay. We must give ourselves the reminders regularly, checking in with ourselves and acknowledging and accepting our emotions, not denying, not ignoring them, and being able to embrace the uncomfortable feelings, because sometimes people avoid those uncomfortable feelings simply because we don't know what to do with them. And so it's important to find a safe way, a safe space to be able to process some of the really hard, some of the uncomfortable emotions that we sometimes want to avoid, whether it's journaling about your feelings, getting them out of your head, whether it's using some other kind of healthy method of self-expression, or whether it's working through these difficult emotions with a licensed mental health clinician. It's particularly important to acknowledge and to accept these difficult feelings, the ones that are, again, hard, like sadness and disappointment, loss, loneliness, rejection, those feelings that everyone experiences at one point or another. And we have to be able to accept them in order to be able to understand what is causing those feelings and how to process them, how to manage them. and not allow those emotions to manage us.
Right.
So reminding ourselves regularly that, you know, we have to talk about our mental health just like we talk about our physical health. There is no health without mental health.
Yes. Dr. Terry, be thinking about this. I'm going to come right back to you. I want to talk to you about some strategies that we can use to quiet our minds and sit still for a second. Be thinking about that. But Dr. Brandy, you know, you heard Ms. Fields mention this characteristic of Black women in general of mama bearing, right? We know that well.
Yes.
And we worry about everybody and try to help everybody. She also called it something like a mental calisthenics
Yes.
during COVID. So what should Black women be doing to ensure that we are well?
That is an absolutely fantastic question. We, as she said, take care of everybody. But I think that we must do what is so difficult for us to do. And that is for every once in a while to just put ourselves first. So even in this month of May, which has been set aside and coined as Mental Health Awareness Month, we must still take into consideration that our mental health is but a part of the whole self health. Okay. And so, with that being said, we need to continue our annual visits to our doctors. If you have certain conditions, like, for example, diabetes, perhaps your regimen is to visit your doctor every 3 months. But having a relationship and having an established physician is something that we all must have. And so, if right now you're finding yourself not being able to name who yours is, that is the first thing that you need to do in taking care of yourself, establish one. The second thing that you need to do is to take care of your blood pressure. We know that we're not very far away from February when we focus on cardiovascular health. And of course, managing your blood pressure is one thing that you can do to ensure that cardiovascular incidents, such as heart attack and strokes, are minimized. The third thing that you can do is to follow all guidelines for cancer screenings. And I won't go into the details of what they are because different governing bodies say what they believe. And then, of course, your insurance says what they believe. And then grandmama and them say what they believe. But I will encourage you to make sure that you are in consultation with that person that you identified in my first point about what is best for you, because sometimes these are individualized recommendations and considerations when talking about things such as breast cancer screening, colon cancer screening, cervical cancer screening. And of course, these can be based on family histories and also on certain lifestyles. And I know we're talking about women tonight, but many of us have some special gentlemen that we are caring about, and we want to make sure that they are getting their prostate screenings and other necessary cancer screenings as well. And then finally, when we're talking about caring for ourselves, we need to make sure, as Dr. Terry has said, that we are setting aside a time to do whatever it is that makes us happy. We are all busy business women. We are busy family women. And so we must make sure that we are doing what it is that makes us happy. You don't have to spend a lot of time doing it, and you certainly don't have to spend a lot of money doing it. But everybody around you should know that that is your time to do you. And remember that self-care is not selfish.
Oh, I love it. Yes, I love that. Okay, Dr. Terry and Dr. Brandy, hold on a second, because our sister here, Roselle, she's been hanging on with us with our technology. I want to jump in and ask you a couple of questions, and then Dr. Terry and Brandy, I've got some more for you as well. But I want to talk about, since you are the financial specialist and we've got you here, you know, we know that Ms. Fields did not necessarily experience any financial loss herself, but these are some concerning statistics that kind of paint a bigger picture of what many people were in fact going through. So listen to this, ladies. 27% of women reported severe levels of stress due to impact on their finances during the pandemic. Yes. 50% of mothers of school-age children suffered financial loss due to the need for assisting children with their education. And then 52% of African American workers reported the outbreak was a major threat to their financial situation, compared to 43% of whites. And of course, as soon as I get into the finance question, we lose her signal. So if she comes back, sisters, I'm going to jump right back into her. But Dr. Terry, earlier I said I was going to ask you about some strategies that we can use to quiet our minds and sit still. Talk to me about that.
It's such an important thing to be able to do, because as Black women, we are so often multitasking and juggling so much. We've become accustomed to always doing and thinking and planning and acting and everything. And then this is tiring. Do you want to stop now? And
oh wait, look, as soon as we get her, let me make sure I can hear her. Sure. Rochelle, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I was going to ask you, speak about the impact of COVID on the financial well-being of African-American women in particular.
Thank you so much, sister. First of all, let me start off by saying that COVID was a different type of recession. We all learned about the economic booms and busts that typically happen. And the normal pattern is that such activity tends to impact men more than it impacts women. But by its very nature, COVID impacted in-person service-oriented roles, which are disproportionately held by women. And as such, it was positioned to impact women generally more than it impacted men. So that's the first thing we have to recognize about COVID. Then I want to break my comments into the immediate aftermath of the onset of COVID, during COVID, and the time we're in now. And I'm going to throw a bunch of stats at you, sisters. So here we go. February of 2020, the unemployment rate for Black women in America was 4.8%, if you were 20 plus years or older. The comparable rate for our white counterparts was 2.8. That was February 2020. Within 8 weeks, that 4.8 had skyrocketed to 16%.
Wow.
We were the highest ethnicity of women suffering unemployment in the nation. So that's the immediate onset of COVID. Now let's talk about during COVID. There's a research center, Pew Research Center. They released a report last year in May. So we're talking about just over a year into COVID. They reported that 4 out of 10 Black adults were living in a home that either suffered wage loss or total unemployment loss. 4 out of 10. Another very significant report was released by the American Federal Reserve Board. It was just released last year in November. And near and dear to our hearts, it identified disruption in childcare as a significant factor in what impacted a woman's ability to earn during COVID. The national average for mothers who said that disruption in childcare impacted their ability to work, either they stopped working altogether or they worked less, was 25%. That was the national average of mothers, which is very high. That statistic amongst Black women was 36% of Black mothers, increasing to 40% for Black women in lower income homes. So that's during COVID. How were we doing? There are other statistics that same report spoke to, the impact on Black-owned businesses. Women Black-owned businesses were approved for credit assistance less than other businesses in America. The statistics just go on. And now that we're in this quote unquote recovery stage, which is a word I want to use very carefully in tonight's discussion, and I hope to come back to, America is recovering. America as a whole is recovering at what everyone calls a stunning rate since 2020. But Black women are lagging behind. The unemployment rate for Black women in America at February was 5.8. So we're still higher than we were at the onset of COVID. And we're materially higher than our counterparts of other ethnicities. So I just threw a lot of stats at us, sisters, but I think the statistics basically support what we are all feeling, which is the impact of COVID was nothing short of a financial wrecking ball for a lot of people. And so, I wish I could be on a brighter note, But if the question put is how are Black women faring, or how did we fare during COVID, that's what the statistics are telling us.
So staying there for then a second, let's try to find a brighter note, right? So then let's talk about how do we recoup? How do we make up for these losses and then strengthen our financial positions? Because clearly there was some impact on our financial well-being, just based on what those statistics you just shared with us.
Absolutely. So let me start off by saying this. Whatever financial plan any of us come up with, let's give ourselves a tremendous amount of grace.
Yes.
We have just lived through, and we are continuing to live through it. This is why I said I wanted to come back to the word recovering. Because yes, there's a sense we're recovering from COVID, but unfortunately, COVID itself spun additional financial issues. And who possibly would have thought? In the Bahamas, we had Hurricane Dorian. We didn't think it could get worse than an entire island essentially having to shut down. 6 months later, here comes COVID. Everyone in the world thinks it cannot get more extreme than New York City being still, right? And then comes a war between two very important countries relative to global supply. And so now we're living in a time of post-Dorian, post-COVID, COVID inflation, a major war. So grace has to be the starting point. There is nothing normal about these times as we sit down to set our financial plans.
Yes. Dr. Terry, let me ask you this. How do we give ourselves that she just talked about it, grace, right? How do we give ourselves the grace we give so willingly to others?
You know, it's important that we do that. And extending grace to ourselves requires that we are realistic and that we look at ourselves with a mirror and not a magnifying glass. We have to be able to release this desire for perfection. That doesn't mean that we aren't still extremely high achievers, because we are. But it does require that we silence that inner critic that we all have, and instead remind ourselves of all that we have done, all that we are doing well, and really stop the unfair negative comparisons and criticisms, because those things do nothing but tear us down and make us feel worse, and then bring about some of those negative feelings that we struggle with managing. We have to begin to practice the skill of labeling an experience that we may be having without applying judgment. And so we can acknowledge that perhaps we didn't accomplish something. Maybe we didn't complete the report on time, or maybe the presentation wasn't done on time, or something that we needed to do wasn't done. But that doesn't mean that we apply a label of ourselves as being a failure or being inadequate. It just means that we weren't able to accomplish something. Our plates are full. We juggle a lot. And tomorrow is another day, and we're able to give ourselves an opportunity to start over again the next day. This is really all part of challenging the negative self-talk that lots of us struggle with. And the negative self-talk, those are those messages in our minds. We all have it. Those are the messages that sometimes tell us that we're not really as accomplished, or not really as good, or maybe this was just so awful. How are we ever going to be able to recover? Those kinds of, it's so awful messages. And you've got to challenge those so awful messages and remind yourself, is it really that awful? Is the world going to end? Is something going to be catastrophically horrible? Or is it just, I had a bad day, I messed up on the report, I'm going to do better tomorrow? Because we all have a tomorrow to look forward to. And so again, it's holding up the mirror and not the magnifying glass.
I'm taking that. I'm just letting you know right now. Ladies, we have about 5 minutes left in this segment. Dr. Brandy, can you talk about some of those physical symptoms that can be attributed to mental stress that surely some of us are just shrugging off?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so we typically don't think about feeling and as a way of physical feeling when we're talking about mental illness and stress. But I do want to challenge you all today that not only does it hurt, the person impacted, but it hurts the family as well as the community as a whole, which is why we're here tonight. With that being said, it's important to know the difference between stress and anxiety. And just briefly, stress is, as it's been hinted at before tonight, that those sets of feelings when an event is coming up, a board meeting, you're preparing for a links event, you're preparing to have 500 guests at your house, and then the event is over and the stress goes away. But sometimes the pandemic lasts longer than 2 weeks, like they told us it would. Sometimes your finances don't snap back like they told us it would. And so now you find yourself feeling these feelings, but nothing is going on. You're not preparing for anything. The headache, the neck ache, the backache, the muscle ache, the tension, the stomach in knots, the butterflies in your stomach. And then you may find yourself in a corner somewhere, feeling like doom. The world is closing in. Your heart is racing. It's difficult to breathe. An elephant is on your chest. It's tight. You don't know if you're coming or going. You're hot and you're cold at the same time. You're sweating. And then it seems like forever, but all of a sudden it ends. And someone asks you, well, what started it? And you don't have a clue. And someone says, well, what ended it? And you don't have a clue. This is what stress, this is what anxiety feels like. But there is hope. You asked for some hope. Shania, you asked for some hope. And there is hope in that if you can get with your primary care provider that we named and you named and you're going to look for if you don't have one, and you can use them, partner with them to get to the next step.
Outstanding. And Roselle, I was going to ask you about how are we careful to avoid some scams around economic recovery, but you wanted to talk about recovery, period. What are your final thoughts related to recovery? I heard you mention that earlier.
My final thoughts are, sisters, I think a lot of us know the basics of personal finance management. My thrust here is, as you review your income, how you can increase it, how you can make it more stable, how you can tighten your expenses, how you can make sure your debt is structured as efficiently as possible. Do it recognizing that we are still in a financial crisis. Set your goals, but make them realistic. They're not going to look like they looked 2.5 years ago. And that is fine. You do the best you can with what you have until this is truly behind us. And that is when you will begin to see yourself financially doing the things that we have been trained to do. But until that day comes, give yourself grace to continue to do the best you can.
We are going to give ourselves grace, sisters. We heard you. We're going to stop that negative talk. And we are going to make sure that if we don't have one, we get a primary physician. Did I get all the notes right? Outstanding. Ladies, you were phenomenal. Thank you so much for your time this evening. We greatly appreciate it. Now, while the concern for the state of our minds in this pandemic is in fact important, the toll on our bodies cannot be ignored. Let's go back to Ms. Fields as she addresses her approach to physical well-being at the height of COVID.
The physical and the mental is so connected. Our physical well-being and our mental well-being, when we are off physically, it affects the mental and vice versa. So I know for me, when I'm off mentally, if I'm in a sense of realignment of, a lot of people keep saying pivoting, making different choices if I'm not in the place where I'm expecting myself to be. There are things that I do, physically. Some are good things, some are not good things. Me and my love affair with cookies and cream, not good. But I think I want to get rid of the word comfort. There's a couple of places where me and comfort are just not friends. Comfort zone and comfort food. I feel like that's just from the devil. So physical exercise, And it certainly affects your mental, during COVID, and even when, now that we've seemingly turned a corner. But the mental and the physical are certainly connected. Physically speaking, I think they call it the endorphins that are released when you exercise and get the energy and everything. I swim a lot. I love water, so swimming really does help me tremendously to stay in shape. It helped me a lot during COVID. I also love walking and hiking. So those were great things to do also because it was outdoors. I wasn't around a lot of people. And that definitely helps me and my body. And I feel better. I don't feel like an oppression, in my body when I feel like I'm just accomplishing something physically, and that's really, really helpful. And so that's what I do. I also have these great yoga apps. One is called Asana Rebel, and I love it. It's got great, I'm not like a yoga person where I can put my foot back here and we ain't doing all that. Just some regular stretching and breathing. I also really, during COVID, I really discovered mindfulness and meditation. So there's an app that I use, mindfulness.com. I love Corey Mascara. He's my mindfulness coach. And it's just, I did a few actually wellness and mindfulness retreats online. They were great. And just really, just deeper dives into that space for me, with just breathing, understanding how breath really can be so powerful and impactful for everything. Sometimes to slow down, sometimes to get me, going, sometimes to focus. And so those are the things that I do physically that have an immediate and direct connection and impact with my mental.
Right.
The physical and
Our next set of panelists will guide us through this discussion of physical well-being. Dr. Vanessa Walker is a doctor of chiropractic medicine whose practice not only focuses on physical interventions, but also on prevention of physical injury through the use of vitamins and other strengthening approaches to keep the body strong. Good to see you. And Brittany Temple, among her many talents, is a fitness expert who helps women get into the best shape of their lives. Where are you in my life, Brittany? She also incorporates preventative care into her suggestions for better physical health. Welcome, sisters. It is a pleasure to have you. We really wanted to, for sure, talk to you all this very evening. Now, we know that many of us took more on a sedentary lifestyle during the height of COVID, and many of us are still sitting on the couch or in our chairs as we continue the virtual work from home. And we know that this kind of lifestyle is just not good for us physically nor mentally. Ms. Fields did come up or tell us about some wonderful physical activities that helped her. Dr. Vanessa, we've been sitting for a while. What are you seeing in your office due to remote working?
So absolutely. So the change of time, the change of world that has come upon us brought us to being at home at our desk for long period of times than before. So what we're seeing in the office, that was just a little bit before COVID, but now we're seeing a whole lot more is what we call text neck syndrome, right? So we all have our phone, our computer in front of us, but we do this motion here, head down. We're sitting there for a long period of time. So we start to bring the stress on our neck, tension to our head, causing headaches, but just putting a lot of tension on our cervical spine. So in turn, that tension, we get headaches. And I say to some of the patients now, before was trauma that allowed for whiplash to happen, but we're giving ourselves whiplash. We're sitting for a long period of time, head forward, and causing that discomfort. So yes, so we see more tension, more whiplash that are self-induced whiplash, or just that positioning because it's the incorrect position for a long period of time that are coming into the office.
And so, Dr. Vanessa, let's stay right there for a second. So then the next obvious question would be, what adjustments can we make to help alleviate some of that tension?
Absolutely. Posture. While I was here waiting to come back, I did one of these numbers. You want to stretch and extend your neck just for a little period of time. On the opposite end, make sure you're getting some motion in your head. Turn to the opposite side, just stretch. So in that changing actually moving our body. So posture is one. Decrease of stress, making sure that we're getting up and moving around in the chain in the forward head posture. So decreasing that, making sure that our computer is at a 90-degree angle and that we are feet flat on the floor, full posture aligned, looking ahead. If we need to change that position, we get away from our desk for a period of time, come back, stretch if we have to, but make sure that we are aligned 90 degrees. Use what you have to do to lift your computer to the 90-degree angle so you're not looking down like this, but you're looking forward.
Yes. Dr. Vanessa, you should see everything I've got my laptop sitting on just so that I can look up and not do exactly what you're saying. Okay, the next questions are for you, Brittany. For everyday people, what do you suggest we do to get off the couch, get out of our chairs, and just get moving? What little thing can we do to just start making it happen?
Sisters, exercise is so important, so we must get moving. Not only does it control our weight, but it improves our mood, mental health, and strengthens our bones and joints. So I want you to think about what you enjoy doing. It may be dancing. If so, put on your favorite song, like one of mine, Before I Let Go, by either Maze or Beyonce, whatever version you prefer, right? But it's a form of exercising. If you enjoy cycling, walking, swimming, like Kim mentioned, aerobics, HIIT, those are great options for exercise. Either way, find something you enjoy doing and do it. It's imperative.
It's just that simple, huh? Now, can you talk about the benefits of being outside and how we can incorporate that into our everyday lives?
Absolutely. Now, you may be hesitant to do some of those activities that I just mentioned in a group setting, and that's understandable. This global pandemic that we've all been faced with has given many people anxiety around leaving their homes. But every activity I just mentioned is something you can also do outside. So get outside, because being outside in God's great sun can boost your vitamin D, help reduce blood pressure, lower our heart rate, improve our sleep quality. It also improves our relationships and reduces stresses, of course, like anxiety and depression. Get outside, ladies, get moving, and remember your quality of life is depending upon it.
Gotta love it. I hear someone's mic on somewhere on the platform. Vanessa, talk to me about you provide guidance on supplements through your practice. Are there some nutritional supplements that would be helpful both physically and mentally as we try to continue to manage our new normal with COVID?
Absolutely. So Brittany just spoke about outside vitamin D, and we should be getting outside, making sure that we have that supplement of vitamin D from the outside, the natural sun. So I always talk about in my office the sunshine vitamin, right? And the sunshine vitamin is vitamin D. You know, for us, we think because we got the melanin, we don't need any more sunlight. But if you're not taking it by going outside, you need to make sure that you're taking by supplementation. African Americans are the most deficient in vitamin D. So we want to make sure that we're taking our vitamin D that helps to boost our immune system, that helps to build our antioxidant. We want to make sure we're getting our vitamin C in. But I say to everyone who comes through my door, make sure you're getting in collagen. It is the WD-40 for the joints, right? So we want to make sure that we're moving a little bit fluid. And if that is, it's the hair, skin, nails, and also our joints. So we want to make sure that we are always using supplementation, not just a period of time, but always using supplementation. And why I say always is because our food most of the times aren't allotted for the supplements that we need. So we have to make sure that we are using additional supplements to support our system.
Yes, if I go to the doctor one more time and they want to give me a prescription for vitamin D. I mean, I think everybody I know needs some vitamin D, right? Okay, Brittany, let's talk about rest. You were talking about that moving, but almost equally as important is getting the amount or the right amount of rest. How important is recovery through sleep and rest?
And listen, I know this can be difficult, but taking care of your mind and body can make a difference in how healthy you are. Relaxation, including meditation, when you practice it regularly, can relieve stress and anxiety. And sleep is so important because it gives your body time to recover. Though many of us don't get the 7 or 8 hours we need, right? Everyone needs sleep, honestly, to feel restored and function at our very best the next day. On other physical benefits, if you think about it, it allows your heart to rest, cells and tissues to repair. This overall can help your body recover even after working out, right? Like we just talked about. And for my ladies who talk about their beauty sleep, right? It slows down the aging process. A tired person, we can say they normally look tired, right? And so we see the fine lines, the uneven pigmentation, and the reduced elasticity. So when you see those stress-free people, they look stress-free. And so think about also just the fact that, like, sleep makes you happier. I have 4 children. My youngest is 2, but when my 2-year-old doesn't get enough sleep, she's cranky. And so an adult is the same. When you're sleep deprived, you're not so happy, right? And it can give you a whole bunch of negative thoughts. And so ladies, get your rest. I know it's difficult, but it's a necessity.
Hey, Brittany, Dr. Vanessa, great tidbits. Thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us. And we hear you. We hear you. Get moving, get some vitamin D, and get some good rest. Thanks so much. We appreciate your time. All right. So now this leads us into our final segment on spirit. Our spiritual well-being has always been a powerful part of our cultural toolkit, right? Well, listen again to Miss Fields as she shares her experience.
My spiritual journey during COVID really was about a lot of music and dancing, quite honestly. Of course, Club Quarantine, and just being lit as much as possible, so that a depression didn't kind of creep in and settle. Just feeling a sense of liberation. And again, not running from any emotion, but being able to work through it and then work it out, and then to keep going. Again, mindfulness has been such a great tool for me, a new tool in my kit, along with, of course, prayer, of course, in terms of the things that I do with yoga. And so just kind of building upon what I know in terms of my faith, but just adding to that. I find that there are times when I don't want to have stale faith and utilize the things that, I grew up on in my teens or my 20s or my 30s. I needed a refreshing. And I even started a wellness platform, a lifestyle and wellness platform called Refresh by KF. And just for that very reason, to give us all some additional tools, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's music, whether it's yoga, whether it's other forms of exercising, other forms of books to read. So that's what I do to definitely level up who I am and where I am in my faith and in my mental to, keep it all together.
Keep it all together. Our final set of panelists are here to give us a look at a refresh, as Miss Kim Fields put it, of faith and spirituality and the connection to our mental wellness. Dr. Sandia Christian, the pastor of Twin Beach Zion AME Church on the Gulf Coast. She's assisted her parishioners through the pandemic and continues to work in that area as a community faith leader, assisting other faith leaders in gaining accurate information to help inform people of faith through this pandemic. It is so great to see you. Corey Brock Cooper is an integrative health lifestyle coach who helps women figure out their desired paths and the steps to reach their goals. A pleasure to see you too, Coach Cooper. And Dr. Tedra Anderson Brown is a psychiatrist who additionally is a licensed minister. She uses her spiritual training to augment the work she does for those needing higher clinical support of their mental health. Ladies, thank y'all so very much for joining us. And listen, they were telling me as we were getting started, we're a little bit ahead of time. I said, you do know we're talking to some pastors next segment, right? So I know that these sisters here and a coach. So I know that we'll be able to continue with our great conversation. Pastor Sandia, let me start with you. What role does our faith and prayer have on our mental and physical well-being?
Sure, Shania. Definitely thank you for being a part of this. Research studies have shown that having faith in God has served as a buffer for people suffering from depression and anxiety. Faith and prayer play a vital role in our mental and physical well-being. For example, the Bible teaches us that God will keep our hearts and our minds in perfect peace. As believers in God, we often lean on the words of God in turbulent times. We tell ourselves that I've stayed with God, I prayed to God, and I've kept my mind on God. And so in those times when we feel like we're down and out and we need a breakthrough before we fall through, we don't lose our minds because our trust is in God. And it's in those times that we hear the word of God saying to us that I am persuaded that neither death,
yes,
nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, or nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, or any creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus. So our faith and our prayer life and our relationship with God keeps us grounded and gives us a sense of peace and hope to cope with our mental and our physical well-being.
And right at that point, let the whole church say amen. We feel you. I mean, because this is why sisters wanted to have this part of the conversation last. Because this is the type of stuff that keeps it's everlasting for us, right? Our spirituality. I mean, we've got to be able to keep it together. And most of the time, if not all, it is our spiritual life that is going to allow us to deal with all of those other things that we talked about tonight. Dr. Sandy, I'm gonna come back to you in just a second. But Coach Corey, you know, this whole idea of crafting your life to be what you want it to be in the now has been highlighted by the gravity, right, of this pandemic. First things first, though, can you tell everybody what a life coach is and how a life coach can empower women?
Yes, absolutely. So when you think about a life coach is your partner. So the life coach helps you focus on your future and what that path forward may look like. So we all have a vision, right, of the person that we want to be. And as the life coach, I'm the keeper of that vision. So I'm holding you accountable to all those daily activities, even as life gets busy, as things push you away from your vision. Because I'm the keeper, I can come back and remind you of the daily decisions that you need to make that support the person that you want to be in the future and the things that you want for yourself.
I love it. Lord knows I need a life coach. I mean, you know, and I want to ask you, this is just literally off the top of my head. What's the difference between a life coach and a therapist?
Yeah, so important, right? Because a lot of times that line, it can feel a little blurry as to what that line might be, but there actually are some pretty distinct lanes. And the simplest way I would say that I would describe a therapist versus a life coach is, so you heard me say that I'm the keeper of the vision. I'm focusing on the future you. I'm helping you to describe the how. So the questions in my mind are how, and my focus is your future. Whereas the therapist is more so asking the question why and how the past has it will impact what happens in the future. So it's a different focus and it's a different question. So therapist, I want you to think why and then the focus being the past, versus the life coach, the question is how and the focus is the future.
Wow, Coach, you just helped me just then. Dr. Tedra, let me ask you this now. We heard Ms. Fields kind of refer to mindfulness. She keeps talking about mindfulness. What exactly is mindfulness and how do we practice it?
That's a great question, and good evening, everyone. So when I think about mindfulness, I think about this intentional pause, being open and attentive to the present, being aware of what we're sensing and feeling, and being in the moment. So what is my breath doing? What is my body doing? What am I experiencing? And understanding that this is really important, because mindfulness helps to further that mind and body connection that we heard so much about before. So when we use and practice mindfulness, it is a way for us to improve both our physical as well as our mental well-being. A way to relieve stress, promote relaxation, decrease our blood pressure, pain, increase sleep that Dr. Terry was talking about earlier. And it really is about that awareness that I spoke of, and then the acknowledgement and the acceptance. So, for example, most of us have smartwatches and they tell us to breathe, right, throughout the day. That's a practice of mindfulness, really noticing, quietly sitting and focusing on our breathing and practicing that. Noticing that our mind may wander, but not judging ourselves or being critical, but just pulling our minds back to our breathing and beginning to practice that, and doing the same thing with our bodily sensations, like if we're tense, like we talked about earlier, headache, tension, or whatever emotions we might be feeling, whether it's joy or sadness. Don't push those away, as Ms. Field said, but accepting them and then practicing letting them go so that it's healthier for us and it relieves that stress. It's really a way, if we think about it, to have calm and peace and balance. And it's another tool. It doesn't take a long time, but we have to be intentional and we have to practice it.
Yes, and I would think, Dr. Sandia, that when we're talking about mindfulness and spirituality, it almost seems like it goes hand in hand. What role did you see spirituality really playing out and playing during this entire COVID experience?
Well, first, Shanya, in order to understand the role of spirituality that is played out during our lives of COVID, we must first understand what spirituality really is.
Right.
It is an individual practice and has to do with having a sense of peace and purpose in our own lives. There was a study that was done by the Pew Research Center in August of 2020 during the height of COVID. The results showed that 3 out of 10 people reported a stronger personal faith as a result of the pandemic. See, the role spirituality played during COVID was it pricked us to open our eyes to the need of a right relationship with God. In recognizing the connection to God, we knew that God has been the one that has been keeping us. He has been the one that has carried us even during the midst of a pandemic. He continued to protect us and keep us. As a pastor, I saw a lot of individuals all over this country through Zoom and through Facebook find their way back home to God. They found that what I would call their first love, which is God. People wanted to get closer to God. They wanted to spend more time with loved ones and do things that they often neglected prior to COVID.
You're absolutely right. And when we were seeing so much loss around us, it really even pulled us closer, because at any moment, weren't we all, we were just afraid to pick up the phone, and I know Matthew, it tells us, we're not to worry. But in this climate that none of us really knew, all of this was new for every one of us. We just didn't know really how to even deal with it. And most of us just fell to our knees and continue to fall to our knees. Let me ask you this. It feels as if, Dr. Tedra, that, in the midst of all the grief, we still have gratitude, right?
Absolutely.
We still have gratitude. And how do we make gratitude an integral part of our lives, given all that we've been through and all that we continue to deal with?
Yeah, that's another great question. And I think, as Dr. Sandia mentioned, it's so important for us to stay in the moment, to practice gratitude, to really address those difficulties through prayer is one way. But really, when we think about gratitude, we want to set time aside, and it's individualized, right? So whether it's in the morning or at bedtime, but really pause and think about the goodness.
Yes.
Think about the positives. And so, we all know, when I think of the goodness, and our souls cry out. So
Yes.
really, we have to notice the beauty, even in the midst, as you mentioned. I mean, Buffalo is happening. We keep having these events that happen, but we have to also think about the good things that are happening and the positives. I like to encourage folks to journal. Writing helps a lot. And not just when we think about our prayers, but prayers of thanksgiving, prayers of praise, not just asking, but being thankful, not just for things,
but the people, for our purpose, for our passion, for the experiences, for the opportunities. And when you begin to do that, the positives begin to take over. That it's really a way to nurture ourselves, to use the spiritual aspects, not just religion, but the spiritual aspects to change, to nurture ourselves, our relationships. And we begin to notice the beauty, that negativity, the negative self-talk. We begin to see more positive. We begin to express that gratitude. And as you mentioned, the ripple effect, it not only impacts us, but it begins to impact all of those around us. And so I would challenge everyone to just start with 1, 2, or 3 things. I like to think about 3 good things every day. You think about morning, noon, and night. And as Dr. Sandia mentioned, the word tells us that we ought to always pray, right? And so prayer is a way for us to have that connection, but also to practice gratitude and be grateful. And if we think about those 3 good things, we know spiritually that's going to help us. It relieves stress, it builds connectedness, and science is also showing that when we do that and practice gratitude, we're more resilient, we decrease our stress levels, and so on and so forth. So the
Yes.
art of practicing gratitude is so very important.
And Coach Corey, the kinds of decisions we're making right now, they've changed because we've seen that life is fleeting, as we've been talking about, right? How do you recommend that we approach new opportunities, or even prepare ourselves to embrace new possibilities?
Yeah, I mean, it's really an extension of what Dr. Tedra just said.
Yes.
When you think about how we make decisions today, it has to be different. And actually, when you going back to Ms. Gorman during her the intro in the beginning, and she said, "So let us not return to normal, but look to what is next." What I
Yes.
like about that is when we think about how we made decisions before, we always thought very logically, and like we focused on the what, the where, the details. And so we stepped away from this idea of actually using the other part of our brain that Dr. Tedra was alluding to, where once we start tapping into gratitude and tapping into the emotional part of our brain, our limbic brain, we're actually able to connect to the why we do things. And when we make decisions based around why we do things, then it actually brings us back to the things that matter most to us. And so when we're thinking about what's next, so not just returning to normal and thinking about what's next, we really need to come from a place of the things that truly matter to us, asking us why before we make a decision, so that we're really tapping into that emotional side and what truly drives our decisions.
Yes. And Pastor Dr. Sandia, how do you suggest we put faith into practice to improve our health and our mental well-being?
Great question. It's incorporating healthy practices for our mind, body, and soul, which positively influence mental health and emotional well-being. See, the benefits of doing this, it renews our strength. So often along this journey, we are weary, we are worn, we are tired. And in the midst of COVID and everything that else that has happened, we needed strength. And every now and then, we have to take time to commune with God. Read your Bible, read our Bibles, and ask God for understanding of His Word in our lives. Ask God to prepare us for what's to come, and make sure that we know without a shadow of a doubt what the will of God is in our lives. In our everyday walk, we must realize that we have come this far by faith, leaning and depending on God. For me, in my experience and my history with God, that allows me to say, you cannot make me doubt Him, because I know too much about Him. This gives me the inner peace and joy and sustainability that I need to carry on, come what may.
That's right.
Another pandemic, something else may come. Our lives are full of ebbs and flows. You either going into a storm, in a storm, or coming out of a storm.
Amen.
So this is how we have to practice and put our faith into practice. And this in turn improves our health and our mental well-being.
Well, sisters, I could be hanging out with y'all all night long. Dr. Tedra, Miss Fields, she did mention music and dancing as a way to feel better. And music, whether spiritual or secular, is a universal connector, right? It's a universal connector. And connectedness is important. Can you speak to the use of music to calm our minds and to feel connected?
Absolutely. I was going to say music moves me, and I love hearing the choir, whether it's at church or the music on the radio or dancing with my friends. And we only have to look to history, our history as a people. And I'm talking about before slavery. Folks always mention the spirituals, which is important, right? But our people in Africa, we've always used music and dancing in the community as a way to celebrate, to heal, to celebrate victory, as well as to look at loss and sorrow. But it is hope and it's inspirational. It's a source of pride. And so even as we think about Negro spirituals, and today, I think Brittany was mentioning about whether you hear Before I Let Go and it's the Beyonce version or the Frankie version, right? We all gonna go, whoa, and we're gonna get up, we're gonna move, right? And it's a way for us to feel good and to have that positivity. As a people, artistic expression has always been important. And even other forms of artistic expression like dance, they build community. And again, as we go back to the science, it shows that, and Dr. Corey was mentioning our limbic system. So that reward, when we dance and hear music that's soothing, it actually makes us feel good because it releases hormones in our body that help us to feel like positivity, that help us to feel that release of stress. It reinforces those positive emotions. So I say, turn up the radio, listen to your favorite song. You can do it on Zoom or by yourself. And so whether it's individual or the collective community, we need to do those things that we know are important to us, right? And so music is one of those things. Even music therapy, art therapy are healing for us. So we should do more of it. Do those things that bring us joy.
Amen, sisters. And listen, we're talking about how to stay calm and cool and connected. Listen, my husband just walked in. I heard him yelling. I was like, oh, Lord, does he not know I'm on the Zoom? But you know what, you guys? This is the kind of thing that would used to stress us out. You get through a pandemic and you're like, hey, this is just normal, right? It's just normal. Coach Corey, I wanted to ask you a very simple question, but how do we know when we need a life coach?
You know, when you need a life coach, if you have even asked yourself the question, I wonder, do I need a life coach? Then you probably need one. If you've Googled life coaches, if you have ever asked yourself the question, or even said to yourself, I really want to do this thing. I want to, I don't know, build this business. I want to start a family, but I'm just not sure how to get it all done. Then you probably need a life coach. So remember, the life coach is the person who keeps that vision for you and holds you accountable to it. So you never lose sight of what you want for your future self. So most of us probably need one.
I'm definitely getting one. I know you're all the way in Louisiana, but hey, the phones work, right?
I'm actually down the street. We're good.
That's right. That's right. Those are such impactful points that all of you have made, and we want to make use of everything in our toolkits to keep us mentally well. Listen, thank you. I can't tell you how much this segment really meant to me, and I'm sure it meant to many others who are watching. So thank you so much, ladies, and have a wonderful evening. Now we will hear from Dr. Paula Orr, the National Vice Chair of the Health and Human Services facet of the Links Incorporated and a member of the Charleston, South Carolina chapter, as she addresses mental health in women over 50. Take a listen.
So women over the age of 50, we have entered a special season of our life. It is our platinum season. And it is the time of our lives where our children are grown and self-sufficient, and we need to focus more time on ourselves, on our physical, our spiritual, and our emotional health. Mental health issues in the African American community have been for a long time taboo and stigmatized, and we just have chosen not to talk about these issues or even admit to ourselves that we might have an issue. And so I'm encouraging everyone to, in addition to having your primary care provider, and if you're a woman, of course, your gynecologist, make sure that you have a mental health provider, someone that you can call on when you have issues and might need some attention in that area. We're all okay until we're not okay, and it is okay.
So all okay until we're not okay. We are so hopeful that you got something out of this. It was very important to us to bring this type of programming to you in May. Our mental health is everything, right? And we have to lean on each other to make sure that we are okay, even when we're not okay. I want to thank all of the ladies again and the Southern area for such a profound town hall. I appreciate the opportunity to moderate this outstanding, and I think we all can agree, much needed conversation. I will now turn our program over to the Southern Area Health and Human Services Vice Chair, Sarah Moody Thomas. Again, thanks everyone for having me.
Oh my goodness, what informative and thought-provoking presentations. The generosity is overwhelming, and for that generosity, I'd like to start by thanking Kim Fields for her willingness to share her COVID experience. And to our moderator extraordinaire, I just want to say thank you so very much for facilitating our town hall meeting. To the Southern Area Program Chair, Deborah Thomas, and to Jill Barfield and Melanie Jones, our area technical team, thank you for making it come together. Now, to each of our panelists, I want to thank you for sharing your expertise and for offering a glimpse of the depth and the breadth of the resources within the membership of the Southern Area of the Links Incorporated. We also want to provide a special thank you to the National COVID Resiliency Network, who's our partner, and a heartfelt thank you to the principal sponsor of this event, Memorial Healthcare System in Florida. The data we heard today tell us that women, Black women in particular, face a significant disparity in mental health care. We also learned that the post-2020 economic recovery largely left Black women behind, and that our best way for enhancing mental wellness in the aftermath of this COVID pandemic is to boost our coping skills. Our panelists offered numerous suggestions to help us strengthen our mind, body, and spirit in order to pave a way forward. I want to thank you all for being with us tonight. And if you're interested in sharing this information or want to invite others to watch the recording, a way to access it will be posted in the chat section. But it's going to be on YouTube and on the Facebook page of the Southern Area of the Links Incorporated. For a wonderful evening, for an informative night, I say thank you for attending and good evening.